were a teenage boy, did you do a lot of like picnics with your friends where you
I did. We called them kegs.
Okay.
And I hope no police are listening, but we used to throw huge keg parties in City Park.
And
we also always brought
sugar bowls and like fine tea sets and things like that. I just like the idea that two 17-year-old boys with their friends at Barn brought out a sugar bowl.
Thanks for tuning back in for part 2 of the Hardy Boys Drink Book number 18, The Twisted Claw, featuring Brian Kusic. When I asked Brian which bar we should feature for his episode, he didn't miss a beat. Gerard's Pool Hall in RiNo is one of Brian's favorite spots. I stopped by Gerard's the other day, and Darren Harris and Stephen Claustre made me a delicious cocktail. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of construction going on, as you can hear.
Yeah, sandals. So tell me a little bit about Gerard himself.
So Gerard is a former antique stealer, kind of having fun a bar.
Okay.
Which is a lot of things that you find in here are things that he's collected either over the years or specifically for this bar. A lot of the pictures are the wall he got from the public archives.
Okay.
Of pool halls throughout Denver, historic pool halls in Denver.
Sure.
Same with the taxidermy, animals, and the big beautiful leather couch.
It is a gorgeous leather couch. I can't imagine where that was originally.
It was some hotel, like Continental, or I don't remember the name of the hotel. But he happened upon it. Like, he had a friend from being in the business.
That's a miracle. That right there.
Yeah,
the timing.
It really is. But yeah, through a friend in the business.
We'll just wait. We'll just hold on a second.
Rather than make my listeners suffer through that, I went back the next day. Stephen was kind enough to redo the interview. Plus, I got an extra opportunity to talk about the delicious cocktail they made me, the Railbird, which was vodka, aperol, grapefruit. Basically, it was summertime in a glass. Let's find out a little bit more about Gerard's Pool Hall. I'm going to make that work. Okay, so I am at Gerard's Pool Hall we're in the alleyway between Larimer and Walnut.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I love the idea of an alleyway entrance to a pool bar. Nothing seems more Hardy Boys than that to me. I'm with Stephen Claustre. Stephen, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about Gerard's. How long have you been open?
We've been open a little over 2 years now.
Cool.
We had our 2-year anniversary about a month ago. We had a big party here.
Pool party. A pool party, obviously, because we are currently sitting up on the mezzanine, is what I learned that we're supposed to call it, overlooking the pool tables. It's a great, huge layout. I am not going to lie to my listeners. I came in yesterday to do an interview with you and Darren Harris, and you guys made me a delicious cocktail called the Railbird. But they were refelting a table yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct, yeah.
Which I had never seen done and was pretty fascinating and also quite loud.
Yeah.
So I decided to come back and see you again today. But I feel like I have better questions to ask today since I came in yesterday.
Yeah.
So, first of all, you're from Texas, right?
That's correct.
And what brought you up to Denver?
It's pretty much real estate,
Yeah.
weather, snowboarding.
All the wonderful things about
all
living
the
here.
good things, yeah.
We talked a little bit about, after our interview, it sounds like you and some of your colleagues here are going down to Area 51.
That's
And now I got to ask you about that, because now I have the opportunity.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, and actually, I couldn't believe it. I reached out to my dad one day, jokingly, because he owns a snow cone company
Okay.
in Southeast Texas, and I just jokingly was like, hey, want to go see them aliens and make some money?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I can't, but you can take the trailer and take the truck and go out there.
It's going to be hot. They're going to want snow cones.
That's 100% correct.
And you said you already had your slogan planned out.
That's right. Our snow cones are out of this world.
Do you think you're going to be the only salesman to land on that particular slogan?
Absolutely not.
I hope that there's a whole row of out of this world vendors.
It's going to be great. Yeah,
so
we're going to have just multiple banners just
awesome
on every vendor.
So Gerard's is cool because it's laid out in a really open way. Like when you think of a pool hall, you enter from an alleyway. We talked about this yesterday. You think of like low ceilings, smoke. Everybody at the bar turns and looks at you. But this is like this big open sort of almost event space feel to it. What's your favorite thing about the location and everything? Being hidden, but also being so, I don't know.
I like it. It's taken us a little longer to kind of generate the regular.
Like you
crowd.
got to know about it.
Right. Either because I play pool. I've been playing since I was a kid, and I played multiple times. I play every day now, but used to play probably 4 or 5 days a week down the street, and I didn't even know this place existed until a year after they opened.
Oh, yeah.
So it took a minute, and I actually worked across the street and still didn't even know.
Still didn't know
so
it
it's
was
kind
down
of
here.
tucked away. It's hidden. So we don't really have a store. We have a storefront sign, but it's kind of mixed in with all the other
In this,
stores in this building.
Yeah, the big building.
Yeah, and so, but I like it. It has kind of a speakeasy feel to it.
Yeah, I like that you have to know. And I was thinking about it. I'm pretty sure you guys are our first bar in RiNo that we featured on. And I love that it's this one that you have to find. Because it makes it feel a little bit more special with you have so much competition in this neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of the draw that we get are people that are walking through the alley. They see all the art and they're looking up and they're
And
like,
they see
oh,
pool
there's
hall.
a sign that says pool hall.
Let's
Holy
put our
shit,
heads in
let's
here.
do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you've also, there's a lot of curated art, and antiques throughout the place.
That's right,
Tell
yeah.
me a little bit about the antiques.
So, I mean, all of these pictures on the wall are from circa 1900.
Okay.
Back when pool was a really big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because TVs weren't in bars, and so you had to have entertainment, and that was the entertainment in these bars. And Denver apparently had a rich history of pool halls.
That's amazing. It makes me think of Music Man, where the lead, there's a whole song about how pool halls are going to turn the kids into deviants because they're hanging around at the pool halls and
because it's definitely a gateway sport, right?
Yeah, it's exactly. You're going to get into track racing, which we have already featured on the show, so we're not moving down any dark paths here. Well, that's awesome. So you guys made me this delicious cocktail called the Railbird yesterday. What goes into making the Railbird?
So the Railbird it's going to be vodka, aperol, fresh grapefruit, fresh lime, and basil syrup. And I have to read the menu because I rarely make it, but it is our most popular drink.
It is, and it tastes. We talked yesterday. It tastes like summertime. It seems like you could drink like 5 or 6 of them before realizing how bad your pool game was getting.
Yep. It's very tricky. You don't quite realize how boozy it is. But at the same time, it's not super sweet.
No.
Like, it's not
the basil, I think, I would never think of basil simple syrup. That's an interesting way to go at it, but it brings a really cool flavor with the grapefruit.
Yeah,
so
it's very complimenting.
What makes the customers you get at a pool hall different than the customers that you get at a different bar? Maybe is it because they're here to play, or because is there a specific type of character that you see in here?
Yeah, it depends on when you're here.
Okay.
So weekends, during the day, we get walk-ins. These folks are from Texas as well, actually, and they're just visiting, and they just somehow
Found
stumbled upon us.
this place. That's amazing.
At the same time, during the weekdays, we get a lot of regulars that come through that play pool. A lot of them don't even pay because they're here so much, and they don't even drink. And they just come in and play pool with the owner, Gerard. And then
it sounds like the desire to have a place to play pool every day was a big part of Gerard opening this place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was wanting to buy in myself when I learned about it, so I could have a piece of this because it's so cool here.
Yeah.
But on the weekends, it gets kind of rowdy.
Yeah.
Not rowdy in the sense like a lot of the bars around here.
Sure, but there's like a lot of people, a lot of playing.
And this, another, again, because we are kind of hidden.
Yeah.
The bars that are next door, people go out into the bathroom and then they walk back and they say, there's a pool hall here.
Let's go play pool.
Go play pool.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, it gets busy. We get like a 10 to 15 people wait list sometimes on the weekends. So
just for a table?
Yep.
That's awesome.
And then, I mean, we get busy on Thursday nights because we have jazz night.
Oh, cool.
But it's not like the weekend.
Thursday night's jazz night. Well, that's good. Kristen and I always enjoy finding a new place to go listen to jazz. So that's awesome. Where's your performance space in here? Just right over here?
Right over there.
That's
we moved
awesome.
all that furniture and they just play right
for those who can't see, with this being an auditory experience, there's like an awesome chess set and a very cool vintage leather couch in one part of the mezzanine that I guess is cleared away to be the performance space. All right. Well, Kristen, did I forget any questions? All right. Thank you so much, Steven, for doing a second round. I appreciate it, and for making me that delicious drink yesterday. All right. Thanks.
Thanks again to Darren Harris and Stephen Claustre. Now let's get back to the book.
They tell Fenton that their plan is that they're going to join the crew of the Yellow Parrot.
Because that plan worked really well last time.
And I think Fenton
says something like, okay, just make sure you think the whole plan through.
Yeah, he says it's too dangerous. You've been seen by the crew members. And I'm like, yeah, it's way too dangerous. And then he's like, I still don't like it. And then they say the perfect thing. We'll be careful.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool. No, that's fine.
Yep. Make sure your plan is foolproof before going ahead with it. We never do that, and we're not going to do it now.
Also,
how do you make sure a plan is foolproof?
Fenton, you are running a huge international crime organization. You know that no plan is foolproof.
You have to plan for the plan to not go to plan.
And then you're going to plan C.
And then they decide, and then Chet's like, oh my god, I can't believe we're going to sneak on board a ship. And they're like,
Oh, Chet, are you still here?
Oh god, we totally forgot.
I
No.
thought you should have gone home a long time ago.
You just stay right here. I don't even remember where Chet goes.
Probably to eat, because they keep calling him fat.
That's true. He eats his feelings. Let me see here. They go to the general store in town and they purchase work clothes. Brand new work clothes, which is always a terrible disguise.
Yeah, no, like, wow, your dickies are really clean.
Thanks. And they're like,
Oh, I'm sure you're good at construction.
you still got a tag on your,
Oh, sorry.
yeah. But maybe they're planning on returning them after they wear them.
I mean, they've got to make some money somehow. Like, the amount of money they've blown through already.
So they tell Chet again, watch the ship while we sneak on board. I don't know what their plan is now, because now they're joining the crew, so...
Also, how are all of these huge pirate ships just, like, short on crew all the time?
I don't know, and this is like a criminal conspiracy where you think that they'd be, like, recruiting people from other gangs and stuff.
No, they're like, no, we'll get it when we're at port.
No,
There's got to be some teenagers.
Yeah, we're taking on, like, day labor for our super secret, top secret, stolen artifact smuggling.
We'll just tell them not to look too hard.
Yeah, don't look in the cargo hold.
But not pay them.
Don't touch those logs. So they tell him, like, the king can always use a couple more hands. And then a guy's like, shut up! Don't talk to these kids. And then they're like, I mean the captain. Sometimes we call him king.
We're just sometimes we call it Pirate King. Oh, I said too much.
It's like Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
Where Jack and I were watching the old Batman serial, and at one point, Robin comes into Bruce Wayne's office while he's having a meeting and, like, sets down coffee for him. And I just imagine Bruce Wayne being like, thanks, Robin. I mean, Dick.
Oh, Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson.
Sorry,
it's Dick Robin Grayson.
we call each other, so as a joke, we call each other Batman and Robin.
It's just a thing.
Because, like...
Okay, thanks, Dick. I'll pick you up in the Batmobile later.
in my regular
Let's take the
car.
train.
But then later in that, when they're in public, Bruce Wayne shouts, "This looks like a job for Batman," and then jumps into his car. And then Robin yells, "And don't forget Robin," when they're in their civilian clothes. And you imagine someone on the street would be like, well, is Bruce Wayne going to go get Batman? What is he talking
Does
about?
Bruce Wayne just drive the Batmobile when Batman's not using it?
Cool.
I mean, he couldn't be Batman. That's insane.
No, he's too busy managing the affairs of the Wayne Foundation. They get asked what their names are, and they're like, Frank and Joe Carlson. And I was like, what? That's not your name.
I feel like the guy asking them had a name tag that said Carl on it. And they're like, Frank and Joe Carlson.
Okay, sounds fake. Why didn't they come up with a fake name before they got on board the ship?
They didn't think that.
They didn't think that far ahead. They didn't know they were getting on this ship this morning.
Yeah, until they saw the ship that they were supposed to watch, and they're like, we're getting on.
Get on it right now.
Quick, put on these brand new clothes.
So Joe, let's see, they get put in their bunk room and immediately complain about it. They complain about everything. They're trying to be
super
undercover.
whiny. That's how you know they're super rich, right? Like everything is not enough.
Even when they're undercover as poor day laborers, they're like, this isn't a comfortable bed.
It's kind of cramped. I mean, there's 2 beds in one room. That seems like a lot.
Don't you boys share a bed, like a room at home, though?
Yeah, but it's like the whole wing of their house
Yeah.
that we don't discuss.
And we have a crime lab. Let's see, and so they keep working, and this actually continuously happens to the Hardy Boys. They think that a good way to get clues at a place is to get a job there and go undercover. And then they're like, I don't have any time to look for clues. They keep giving me work to do.
Again, obviously, they're super rich, right? They've never worked a job.
Oftentimes they will quit that as soon as they find the clue they were looking for. And I imagine that the people in town are like, no, you said you were going to work here all
I hired
summer.
you. Like, what?
Turns out it was we were just looking for clues. Also, you were having us work like all day. We could barely look for clues.
Yeah.
They get a note when they go back to their bunk. And it says, get off this ship before it's too late.
this note seemed really well timed.
Yes.
And I also was hoping it was in a secret code just because I have it on my bingo. But
it's not. No,
it's
just vague. The time for them to get this note would have been before they left the dock.
Yeah, not when they were sailing.
Because it is too late.
Yeah. We're going to take a lifeboat?
Yeah.
I also have a feeling that pirate ships don't have the proper amount of lifeboats.
No, they probably have like one dinghy that you can use. I'm going to check in with my bingo again real quick because I've been keeping track of the air travel. We definitely treasure a secret passageway. When they fell through into that tunnel underground, does that count as a secret passageway?
I think the hole led to a secret passageway, right?
Right.
I think we should go for it.
Okay, great.
I have on here a cult. And now, the Twisted Claw is not necessarily a cult, but they call their leader a king.
I think. Well, let's wait until a little bit later.
We'll see.
I think once we see how he's running the island, I think you might actually get
very
that
clear.
One. I'm gonna take that vagrant with mental health issues.
Yes, I mean that's clear because that guy who stands at the dock as claiming to be a captain.
Yes, but
disappears very quickly.
Very quickly. I don't have any respectful use of Spanish.
Now, I have the Sleuth.
The Sleuth is the name of the Hardy Boys speedboat.
So that's definitely not.
They have motorcycles, a car, a speedboat. They have an ice boat that they use to sail on frozen rivers. Yeah, and then they have a private plane.
Wait, but what is an ice boat? Is it just a boat with skates on it?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
It's like a big sled is what it comes off. It seems like.
You should have just gotten a sled.
Yeah, big sled is what it should be called.
Okay.
But anyway, they were psyched when they got it. It was a whole adventure.
Just to get that boat?
No, they got it for Christmas.
Check their background check. They had to, sit at the DMV for a long time.
Let's see, yeah, so they are really bummed that they don't have any time to investigate because they're working all the time. And I think Joe just starts to get pissy or something.
Yeah, because this is when he gets thrown in the brig.
He splashes paint on a guy. Really, because he's not being...
He drops the can of paint, and the guy below him thinks he's trying to hit him with the paint.
And he's like, it was an accident. And they're like, yeah, well... We're going to lock you in the brig and give you a couple days of bread and water.
Well, I would too, because I think when he was confronted about dropping the paint, he tried to fight the guy he almost knocked out.
Instead of just
Instead of being like, I'm sorry.
He says, I'll wipe the floor with you to the guy. Joe needs to chill.
Yeah, Joe's got some rage issues.
Yeah, so then Frank keeps sneaking down to bring food to Joe, which I understand from a brotherly perspective, but that just seems like a good way to get Joe, beaten.
Or both thrown into the brig.
Yeah, both thrown into the brig and no food. They're really taking a risk. And they decide that the logs, there's something weird about those logs that they loaded into the cargo hold.
Well, it's really been the only thing that's been loaded on and off these ships
is logs.
The entire time. Is logs.
So he goes, let's see, Frank decides to go check him out, but he keeps getting caught. And thrown back in his quarters, which I like that. I like that it's a small ship.
Yeah, back to your room.
Yeah, why do you keep getting out? They don't lock him in there, though.
No.
Or in the brig.
Also, it's really not okay for him to walk around, ever.
They assign him to deck watch because they don't like how much of the ship he's wandering, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And then he's bored. He's bored, and what bothers him most is the fact that he had to remain in one spot and could not wander about it to search for information. And I was like, yeah, it's a job.
That's what you do.
That's a job. You have to stay in one place. You're not allowed to wander around. They have no concept of what this is. But let's see. He goes back to visit Joe again. It's just him bouncing around the ship. And then he goes to check out the logs. And one of the logs breaks loose and nearly crushes Frank to death. But he's fine.
Yeah, I also think they were very specific earlier in one of the tasks they had on this ship was to batten down all of the cargo.
Yes.
And when they asked if they could batten down the logs, the crew was like, no, it's fine.
Not those. Those are okay. Good. They should have, though. They should have just let the boys, because now he almost dies. Oh, he jumps. He leaps.
And hangs from something.
Hangs from a girder on the ceiling.
There's also a storm happening right now. This is why the logs are it's a crazy sea storm that
the ship is rocking all around. Frank manages to leap at least 8 feet into the air to grab a girder that's up above, and he's dangling from that.
When I read this, I imagined he was swinging back and forth as logs are just smashing from one side of the ship
underneath
to the
him.
other.
And if he falls, he's going to get crushed, but he won't fall because he's Frank. And then a bunch of crew run into the room to try to deal with the logs, and he drops to the ground, and they're all, of course, very surprised, as if Spider-Man just entered the room.
Dude, you got an 8-foot vertical? That's pretty sweet. What are you doing working on a ship?
Yeah.
It's 1920. Go play basketball.
Yeah, or or join a carnival or something, or at least like don't complain about the manual labor we've been assigning you when you're this amazingly strong.
Yeah, it's not that hard for you.
He makes a really lame excuse where he's like, I just got off of deck watch and decided to walk around. And they're like in a huge storm where you can barely stand up on the boat.
Yeah, I like the rocking.
Oh.
I like to like hit the walls every now and
Makes
then.
sense. And they're like, why didn't you call for help?
No, and this is something that I was like, yeah, no, why didn't you call for help? You have logs smashing below you.
They probably would have appreciated it. He's like, oh, when the logs rolled towards me, I jumped for the girder, and the captain rubs his chin dubiously, and I'm like, yeah, because I wouldn't buy that.
I would have walked out the door.
Yeah, I wouldn't have leapt up.
Also, the excuse he should make is like, I heard something crashing, I came to inspect, was gonna call you, but had to make this massive jump just to watch for a bit.
And then they let Joe out of the brig for no reason. They just decided.
No, I think it was just time. They're like, he's had it, he's served his time.
They go back to the cargo hold because now that they've just gotten done with their punishment, they decided it's time to take another massive risk. Frank says that when he imagined that, I may have just imagined it, but when the logs rolled back and forth across the deck, some of them sounded like they were hollow. I'm like, yeah, no crap.
Also, how can you hear that over the massive storm that's raging and all of the commotion?
The commotion. He's got this amazing Superman style, everything goes slow-mo and you can hear like...
And what he should be doing is getting into construction, just to find studs in the wall.
Yeah, because that's an incredible ability. Right. A guy who's trying to help them gives them a warning in the dark and then takes a bright flash of light and tells them, stop your investigation, get off the ship. Again, they don't have any option to get off the ship.
Like, cool, I guess we'll swim back to shore.
Which they could do. They're the Hardy Boys.
Well, and they eventually do it.
Let's see, they track him down, though. How do they find him so quickly? They find out who
they
he
like
is.
walk by some room and hear him talking,
and they're like, "Oh, it's that guy.
It's gotta be this guy,"
because I recognize his voice.
Yeah,
that's true. On a ship with a small crew, it would be really hard to like disguise yourself.
Also, this is the first time this man is ever mentioned.
Yeah, Clay Ellis is his name. The radio operator.
There's several other people they mention, sort of by name, on this crew that never really come back.
No, they all get bad guy names, but
they should have just looked at the manifest.
Yes,
right, seen who's aboard.
Yeah,
and been like, this guy, he seems way younger than everybody else. Also, he doesn't have an eye patch on right now. That seems like a clue.
Yes, he is clearly not a regular member of the crew. He won't give them a lot of information.
No, he's keeping his cards close to his chest.
But I really like that he says to them, he says, I know you're the Hardy Boys. And Joe asks, how did you learn that? He says, I've been interested in crime stories for years and the work of famous detectives. Photographs of you and your father have appeared in many publications I've read. And I was like, stupid fame.
Yeah, oh, jeez.
Like, they're so famous that it's ruining their ability to be in disguise, which is my biggest problem with Fenton being an internationally famous private detective.
Yeah, you would see him coming from a mile away.
You'd be like, oh my god, that's internationally famous detective Fenton
That's
Hardy.
why for sure he's like a kingpin.
Yes.
Right? Like, so people see him coming like, don't say anything, don't say anything.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's he's undercover. He's pretending not to be Fenton Hardy. Just go along with whatever he's saying.
Yeah, like we all know, but just do what he says.
So the operator tells them that they walked into the lion's den and they got to get off of the ship. Mm-hmm. And the Black Parrot is about to rendezvous at Tambillo Island.
Yeah, they received this letter in the middle of their conversation about like, I know you. You're the Hardy Boys. I'm a huge fan. Oh, yeah. Letter. I've got to send this message. It's about the Black Parrot.
We're going to meet the Black Parrot. And they're like, oh, we can't meet the Black Parrot. And I kind of want to check real quick to see if there is a Tambillo Island. Because I have a made-up country as one of my bingo clues. And I don't know if Tambillo Island is made up. The first thing that came up was the Hardy Boys.
Yep, so made up. It's made up.
Great.
So there's one more for you.
They're going to a made-up country. Or at least a made-up island. Let's see. Oh, yeah, so they decide that they're going to hide during the rendezvous. And Ellis is like, no, you can't, because if we get close to land, they double-check and make sure all the crew members are on board, just in case somebody jumped off the ship.
And again, I think this is another point where the captain comes out of left field. It's like, but you guys, we're going to lock you up in yours.
Right, which is the right call, because these kids have been suspicious as hell the entire time they've been on board the ship. Yeah, lock them up. And I can't remember how they get out. Does Ellis just let them out?
No, yes, they try to fight first because Joe keeps running his mouth.
Yeah, that's right.
And they lose because they're children fighting grown men, even if they can jump really high and are super strong. Yeah, they have they're like Spider-Man, basically. They're told that Ellis tells them that when they if they can get to the island, there is a hermit on the island that they can stay with.
because there's always a hermit on every island.
Well, at least one.
Yeah.
If the island's a little bit bigger, I mean...
Maybe there's 2 hermits.
But then they're constantly saying this island isn't big enough for the 2 of us.
And I wonder... Yeah, right. That happens all the time. It's contentious. I do wonder if that's just a Treasure Island thing, where they meet the dude who's wearing goat skins on the island. If now every single book with an island has to have a castaway on it.
I mean, it makes sense to me.
Yes, it makes sense to me as well. But let's see. Ellis lets them out. They of the brig. They get off the ship and swim to the shore. This is when it gets really weird when they're on the island. After half an hour of swimming in the open ocean, they manage to trudge up onto a sandy beach. Not get caught in any rip currents, not get pulled out to sea.
No, but then immediately when they land, they're like, we need to hide our tracks.
Yes, we better start erasing our tracks. Otherwise, they'll start looking like road signs when the daylight comes. The weird thing is that they were told that they could stay with this hermit.
But the hermit also locks them up.
Well, and they don't... I think that it's fine. It's fine that he does that to them because rather than, hello, we're the Hardy Boys. We were told to contact you. They're like, let's hide and wait till he leaves his hut.
Yeah.
They sneak up. So and then...
Breaking and entering is what that's called,
right? They do the most literal form of breaking and entering I've ever seen in my life. First of all, for readers at home, the hut is described as 4 feet by 4 feet. Mm-hmm. So you can look at it and be like, a person does not live in there. They walk up to this 4 foot by 4 foot hut with a heavy oak door, and they try the door handle. And I thought they were going to be like, maybe we can look over the top of it, or maybe we can find a gap. And he says, help me with this. And then the brothers just rip the door off of its hinges.
Again, they're so strong.
Yeah.
But they cannot beat 4 middle-aged pirates.
But they can literally break and enter into this house.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what? Wait, why?
Different time.
Now this hermit is going to have a grudge against you. But the hermit is freaking amazing.
And this is our second potential older man with obvious mental health issues.
Yes. On the far side of the room sat a man in a huge high-backed chair. He did not move. He didn't even bat an eyelash.
Hello,
Joe blurted out. There was no reply. Joe looked at Frank.
Is he for real?
Frank shrugged, and they walked closer. There was a frozen grin on the man's ebony face, and he did not seem to breathe at all. He was attired in a red and white checkered sports shirt, ragged slacks cut off at the knees, and white tennis shoes.
Wow,
Frank whispered.
He must be right out of Madame Tussauds Wax Museum.
He stepped forward and touched the man's face. The next moment, he yelled,
Joe, he's alive! Of course,
said the man.
What made you think I was not?
The grin disappeared from his face, and suddenly he looked menacing. Despite their usual coolness and presence of mind, the Hardys shrank back before the recluse.
Please, do not break into my home again,
he said. With that, a trap door sprang open, and the boys were dropped into a shallow pit. I love that. I love that whole scene of the creepy dude sitting very still, them getting so close, and Frank
touching his face. I imagine him just touching his face,
pushing
near his eye, right?
He's alive. Why was that how you checked? Then, despite the fact that they were told to stay with this hermit, when he asked them about what they're doing there, they lied to him. And they're like, oh, there was a storm and we got shipwrecked.
Yeah, that is a lie.
Yeah,
that's all a lie. That's a blatant
they just
lie.
jumped off board.
Also, I like that the old man was very cordial, asking them not to break and enter again. He said, please do not break into my home again.
But I don't think he realizes that they ripped the entire door off the hinges. I think he thinks they just picked the lock.
Which is interesting because it's a 4 foot by 4 foot room, right? So,
but don't they go down a staircase once they get inside it?
I think that's right.
That it's like a bunker underneath.
It's just like
an underground island bunker.
This is the phone booth that's actually a secret entrance.
It turns out the whole place is rigged up with electricity. So there's a refrigerator, there's an electric stove. Katu, who's this guy, Katu makes them burgers. And he says that they're going to wait until his amphibious friend returns. And I was like, monster. Please let there be a monster.
And the way they set it up, I was like, either they're teaching children the word amphibious, or we're going to encounter a monster.
A monster like a frogman, which would have been the only thing that made this
better.
But when the amphibian shows up, it's actually a tall, wiry man with sandy-colored hair named Dan Tiller.
Oh, damn.
And what I don't get is that Dan Tiller is like, "Who are you?" And they tell Dan, the white person that they've met.
No, because they're very clear that this hermit is a black person.
Yes.
Right?
And they do not tell him the truth.
No, and it's like,
And then
all right, Hardy Boys.
And then as soon as the white Dan Tiller shows up, they're like, "Oh my god, okay."
Okay, thank God. I was really worried.
Yeah, I was
we
like-
broke into this man's house and he was black.
And very nice. We were unnerved.
Yeah, it is.
Didn't go the way we thought it would. But it turns out, and this actually comes to be kind of a sweet story. Tiller explains that he doesn't pay any real estate taxes on this place. I don't know why he tells the kids that.
Also, he's really nervous that they're investigating him for real estate fraud, right?
He thinks that
Also, the Hardy Boys are American, and they're deep in the Caribbean right now.
way outside of there.
So, like, the
Not
Caribbean,
that they have a jurisdiction.
So here's Dan's fear, that the Caribbean government hired the Hardy Boys to just investigate real estate fraud.
Because he's living in what appears to be a tiny shack, but is actually a
A
jet
huge, massive bunker, right?
with electricity and everything. And I really like that. So Katu, he's like, I landed an amphibian, my amphibian to rescue a person clinging to his raft.
Oh, but let's be clear. His amphibian is a plane that can
seaplane.
land on water.
Yes.
But also has wheels.
It's not like a car that can go under the water.
Yeah, I was really hoping for a duck.
Yeah.
Like one of those
Yeah, exactly.
the tank water crafts.
It was not that, no. But so he tells a story about how he rescued a man from a dugout canoe that had capsized, and it was Katu, and he flew him back to his base on Cambrian Island, which is about 600 miles north of here.
Yeah, so he basically kidnapped this man and then left him stranded on his island. Also, he was in a canoe. That means he for sure wasn't in the open ocean. He was probably just like fishing on some lake.
And he didn't speak any English. And we know this because Katu liked it and stayed for a year and a half. He went to school. He learned English. Just enough English to ask to be returned home. No, but he worked in a hotel. And Dan and Katu became great friends, and they flew a lot. And one day we discovered this island and decided to make it our Shangri-La, some place where we could get away from the world. It's pretty perfect, don't you think? And I'm like, oh, you fell in love.
He fell in love, but he's constantly leaving his lover alone to sit in a
island.
chair completely still.
But I also don't think that Joe and Frank pick up on the fact that this is an interracial gay couple in the 50s. Because they're like, that sounds great.
Can you fly us back? There's another flight happening here.
But but I do like that they became such close friends that they needed a Shangri-La where they could get away from the world. But also that Dan is not committed enough to Katu to just move full time to the island.
No, he just visits like on the weekend.
Yeah, he's still flying. Yeah, there were a lot of high points of this particular book, but Katu and Dan were probably my favorite.
I just like that you saw it as a beautiful relationship. I saw it as elaborate kidnapping. Right?
I think it maybe started, it's a little column A, little column B.
Oh, so like
it started as maybe Katu developed a little bit of Stockholm Syndrome.
For sure he did.
But Katu doesn't seem to have any way to leave this island.
No, and he has obviously been sitting super still in a chair for hours.
I didn't know if that was just to trick the Hardy Boys or if that's just how Katu passes the time.
I know they're coming. Okay, I'm gonna sit. Okay, don't move.
Even if they touch me on the face, I'm not going to move. Dan is giving them a ride, a flight back to shore, and they pass the yellow parrot, and they fire missiles at the airplane. Yeah, they do lose an engine, but then it turns out that the engine it was just oil on the engine.
Well, whatever they figure out, they're not charged for it. Is what it is.
Yeah, Dan's like, I got extra engines. Don't worry about it.
And this is the only time I've seen the Hardy Boys offer to pay for something
that they were responsible for.
Yeah,
they get home, and Aunt Gertrude is like, oh my God, it's been days and days since we heard anything from you. And you imagine Laura being like, were they gone? Like,
did you find my pills when you were gone?
They're like, no, Laura, I hid your pills.
They're in my pocket.
Yeah, she doesn't seem
worried in the slightest.
Nope, she's like, well, it's good to see you boys. How was your camping? Were you camping? What was it? We were undercover on a pirate ship.
Will you bring Mommy another bourbon?
Sure, Mom. Fenton Hardy's like, you place yourself in a very dangerous position. I'm thankful you decided to escape. You let them.
You agreed to it, Dad.
You told them.
Totally you.
Yeah. And then Fenton Aunt Gertrude is very correct in being like, you should tell them not to go running off for days at a stretch without letting us know where they are. even a postcard would have been some consideration.
Yeah, and then Fenton's like, this is why you're not married. Right? And like,
oh, sorry we didn't send a postcard from Castaway Island.
yeah.
And then Frank's like, well, the situation was sort of grim. Yeah, it was sort of grim. You almost died. Someone fired at an airplane.
And then you broke into someone's
You
love
broke
shack.
into their love shack. That's, but the trip was not a complete loss. Because they have this contact now on the ship named Ellis. And Ellis told them, the radio operator, that he's going to be broadcasting...
Constantly?
Constantly.
No, I think he says he'll broadcast at some point.
Between a certain hours.
Yeah.
He'll broadcast.
But it was very much like waiting for the cable person. Like, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 a.m. the next day.
They set up a listening watch where they're all going to sit by the radio to listen to it in case it comes through. And they also wrote Chet in. And I'm like, Chet doesn't have to do this. They're like, Chet.
But before that, they find out that Chet has become an archaeologist and is digging in his backyard and strikes a water main.
He did not call the Can You Dig It hotline.
No.
To find out if it was safe to dig.
Also, he was probably digging in the street where there's definitely water mains, right?
Chet seems almost like brain injured in this book. Chet spends a lot of the rest of this book paying off the city for...
No, they don't. He doesn't have to pay for it.
Oh, what?
Because the city finds out that, we needed to replace that water main anyway. We're not going to charge you.
That's right, because they admitted liability?
Yeah.
The city didn't just take this opportunity.
Yeah, because that's
to,
how cities work.
No,
right?
yeah.
Like,
the city would have been like, actually, wait, this kid
you've
broke
got to
it,
replace the whole thing.
and we needed to upgrade anyway, so great, now we don't have to pay for it.
Problem.
Frank is like, don't take it so hard, things could be worse. And he's like, yeah, I guess. I don't know how it could be worse than this. Everyone's so mad. And they're like, well, don't worry. We need your help. And Jet's like, what kind of help?
Oh, cool. Never mind about all my problems.
And they're like, yeah, we need you to sit by the radio at our house for like 4 to 6 hours.
And I just imagine Chet really excited, like, can I bring a book or something?
No. We need you like
sitting.
focused.
Okay.
Could I have like a snack or no snacks? No, you just stare at the radio.
Thanks for thinking of me, guys.
Sure. Okay, bye forever. But I also wonder, it seems like Chet's dad might have just paid the city. Because later, Chet's like has to do a bunch of work for his dad.
Yeah, well, he also is a farm person, so that's just
He
sort
has
of
to
like
do
par
work
for
for
the
his
course,
dad
right?
anyway.
And that's why he's baffled that the Hardy Boys can't work a 7-hour day.
But I also like how they were going to each take a day's shift to listen to the radio. So Chet's assignment isn't for 4 days from now.
Yeah.
Because Frank, Joe, and Fenton each get a turn first. So they're like, we need your help and we're going to distract you from this crappy thing that happened
In 4 days. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. And then Ellis contacts them before Chet even gets a chance to help. But they do find out that there was another museum robbery.
Yeah, because they've been sailing for 4 weeks. There's got to be another robbery.
That's right. It's in Connecticut. They immediately go to Jack Wayne to take another flight to Connecticut.
And again, Jack's pretty sad. He's like, oh, you flew on a seaplane? Oh, you guys flew from Miami? Oh, cool. I was just here.
They're like, well, we need a flight. And he's like, where to? And they're like, Connecticut. And he's like, oh, okay.
Weren't you guys just somewhere else? And how'd you get back? Oh, it's cool.
Why do you have a private
I mean,
plane?
I really like Miami, but,
Would have loved to go. Let's see. They find out that the museum has not been robbed.
It's a ruse.
It's a ruse. Yeah, it was a red herring. But another museum has been robbed, which seems like, oh yeah, of course.
And I just imagine the phone call was like this.
Hello, I'm a museum guy, and we've got a robbery at a museum in Connecticut, not anywhere else. All right, we'll see you soon, Hardy Boys.
Over and out.
All right, it worked. Oh, hang up.
They bought it. Yeah, but then they realized that it was a trick to draw them to the wrong museum, and I was like, these guys are dummies. Before they split up.
Also, I think in every one of these museums they've been to, there's a line or two about them finding a comfortable chair and taking a nap in them.
Yeah.
That the only time they're really sleeping is in museum chairs.
It's quiet, it's comfortable.
I mean, it's the best night's sleep you'll ever have, besides the gas, right?
Yeah. There's no field trips, apparently. So let's see. Then they fly to, Delaware?
Yes, from Connecticut.
From Connecticut. They need to refuel the ship to Delaware. While you refuel the ship, I'll check with the curator and the police down there. one wild goose chase is enough. And I'm like, oh my God, they're flying so much. So much, yeah.
No wonder we're in a problem of global warming. It's because 100 years ago they just flew all over the country whenever they wanted with their private jets.
That's what I'm talking about. If this was a film adaptation, I want every single one of these flights in there where you see the boys get on the plane, riding in the plane, getting off the plane.
And not like Indiana Jones with a red dot, but just them sitting awkwardly in a tiny plane.
For like a couple seconds too long. And then
just so we know.
Yeah, and they were on a plane. It took a long time. And then, it says... The sleek Hardy planes streaked down the Bayport runway to take off for the second time that night. So they didn't fly to Delaware. They flew home to Bayport. And then flew from Bayport to Delaware.
Right. Again, this is why we're in the situation climately we are.
Yep, it's all the Hardy Boys' fault. So let's see. I don't like how they give all these characters names, like Seth Spencer, the chief of detectives in Connecticut or in Delaware.
Yeah, we got Mr. Sidney at Connecticut. We've got...
They could have just called him the chief of police. Because whenever they give him a name, I assume that they're going to, matter. And they don't.
We also have Mr. Faustin, the curator.
Oh, right.
This museum gets a lot of really personal touches with these names.
It does. They think that Mr. Faustin might be unconscious somewhere in the building, right?
Right. They send everyone to, the police chief, Mr. Spencer, has everyone go back over the work they've done with a fine-tooth comb. Although this museum has just been robbed, which means these police did not do their job when they got there. They just start standing around like, it's robbed. Well, another robbery.
Stuff is gone. Boys, any clues you'd like to take with you?
Here, take this. It's for sure got fingerprints on it, but take it with your bare hands.
I like that Frank suggests that maybe the thieves took the curator along with them, and Spencer's like, if so, they'll have a kidnapping charge added to their crime. I'm like, I think they already have a kidnapping charge from when they kidnapped those boys. Twice.
Also, they have a kidnapped victim with them that we'll get to. I'm sorry. We'll get to this. Right. I didn't mean to,
spoil it.
Yeah.
And then Avery Faustin calls, and he's like, I heard a TV newscast saying the museum was robbed. What's going on? And
they're pissed it gets to the media.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, it's over.
Yeah, I wrote stupid fame again. Because, as soon as it gets out on the media, Fenton's like, we're screwed. If they know the Hardy Boys are investigating...
It's all over every paper in the country.
They're just going to stop robbing museums. And I'm like, well, good, right?
Isn't that a plus?
Don't we want them to stop robbing museums? Yeah, the chief of police is like, why do you want us to track... Because Frank is like, hey, was there any, logging companies around here or trucks carrying logs? And they're like, yeah,
it's
why?
Delaware. It's 1920. Yeah. For sure there is.
He's like, can you track a flatbed truck carrying logs? And he's like, I can do that, but why? And Frank says, I can't explain now. It's a hunch.
And so the chief of police is like, all right, I'll do it.
Well, if it's a hunch.
Also, this is... Okay, I'm still, is it 1920 or is it 1950?
It's somewhere in the first half of the 20th century.
Okay.
That's what you have to... It's this no time that exists between the 1920s and the 60s.
Let's say between wars.
Okay, yeah.
We'll say between wars.
Yeah, that's good.
So that means this chief of police to track a flatbed truck means he has to send every officer he has on his staff
on patrol.
Yeah, out to find a flatbed truck.
Every flatbed truck that has logs on it in Delaware.
If we could travel through time, this is the time to re-rob the museum.
Yes,
right.
When none of the police
for
are
all
around.
the stuff that wasn't taken by the idiot
probably
robbers.
Very valuable things. They go back to the airport. Jack Wayne is asleep on a sofa. I like that little touch that he's crashed out.
But
I like that he's
sleeping soundly.
Sleeping soundly, and they're like, Jack! They shout at him. Oh, no, they gently shake him. Okay. We have to fly to Newland, New Hampshire.
But I think they still yell Jack because there's an exclamation point. So they yell at him and then gently shake him.
So he's startled awake, and then there's a teenage boy lightly touching him.
Oh, Jesus, don't touch me.
We have to fly to New Hampshire. Okay, great. Let's fly to New Hampshire. They fly to New Hampshire. They have a quick breakfast at the airport. I can't tell if these are small, small little private airports. This sounds like a real airport that they went to that had a cafeteria.
Between the wars, the air traffic control person also cooked for everybody that landed,
And was the bartender
Different time.
in the morning pilot's lounge. I'm going to check my bingo one more time, see if anything else has been added. No secret codes.
No rewards. I don't have a ghost or a party or a picnic.
Yeah, I'm pretty stuck here. I would need surfing and sabotage, and I don't think I'm going to get either.
Say what they had for breakfast?
No, which is pretty strange.
I was hoping for pie.
Yeah, no, I don't have pie. I don't have a picnic either. Has Mrs. Hardy left the house?
No, she's in a drug-induced coma.
That's right. Okay, well, we'll check back in a little bit later. Maybe there will be more. When they get to this new police station, they've flown to so many places. This is in New Hampshire. They found that logging truck, and they unscrew the end of one of the logs, and stuffed inside it is the artifacts.
But these poor loggers that were driving this truck, they're arrested.
Yes.
And they come to him, and one of them's like, I knew it was a bad idea when they gave us fake license plates, when they told us to come back in an hour or so after taking a walk, after they were cutting open the logs, and we come back to full logs again.
And they're like, and so we were pretty suspicious, but they offered us 3 times the normal rate, so we couldn't say no.
And I agree with that. That's the one thing I actually...
But it's like, okay, so it was clearly, like, illegal, but they were like, well, whatever, we'll just say we didn't know anything about it.
But we haven't really discussed the logs truly. So what's happening is they're cutting the logs in half, hollowing them out, and then putting suits of armor, orbs, and scepters in them. Because if you're traveling with a very valuable crystal orb, the best place to put it is a hollow log.
On the back of a flat
Also stuffed with suits of armor and scepters.
And then they managed to so delicately carve the logs so that they screw bottle cap style together.
Yeah, I also hope that these logs, they're like cut in half and then cut like foam briefcases so that each thing has its perfect spot within the log. Then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, okay, that sounds really cool. But they were only gone for like an hour. They were told to take an hour-long walk.
I think it was something like, go take a hike for an hour. It's like, yeah, that doesn't sound mafioso or piratey.
So they were supposed to deliver these logs to Stormwell, which is the port in Canada where the Mounties rescued the boys.
Yeah, also, so they're taking logs from Delaware to Canada to then be sailed to the Caribbean. Yeah. This seems like a really not well thought out plan.
Just so complicated. I like how they asked, can you get a description of any of the men? And they're like, no, it was too dark. I was like, so also, these men stood back in the dark shadows.
But also, they just talked to these men as they dropped the logs off.
Which means that these guys just realized after telling the story that they're just as that they're accomplices and are now no longer cooperating.
Yeah, no, they immediately switch. No, I don't recognize anybody. Yeah, I am calling a lawyer.
Yeah, as soon as they realized, they're like, now that I tell the story, we definitely did crime.
It's also very disturbing to think that maybe they're telling the truth and these 2 truckers can't see to save their lives. Right?
Yeah, they're both loggers and truckers. That's dangerous. They need to have better night vision. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then the desk sergeant is like, "Hey, cool. You guys read in the paper today. Ed Watts at the Newland Record. He got excited when he heard you were in town." And so
the Hardy Boys just start cussing. Like a stream of profanity you have never heard just falls out of their mouth. And their dad's like, what happened? They're like, we were sailors.
They're like, no, what? They're like, the press is the enemy of the people. But anyway, they decide, why do they undress? I just read before they undressed, a telephone call advised that there had been no record of the log shipment. I guess they're about to go to bed.
Yeah.
Because they flew back to Bayport.
It also says that these 2 truck drivers were released and given their truck back. With the fake tags that were given to them by the pirates.
No, that's impounded. And also hold them, because it seems like they might still have some information. So they think that it's like totally, that their stupid fame has ruined everything. They're not going to get any more leads. Oh, but their only hope now is that Clay Ellis, who is on board the Black Parrot, will contact them.
Yeah.
And give them some information. They don't know if he's even
sitting there for the past 4 days by the radio,
listening to the radio.
It's like, I wonder when they're coming back.
And then Chet kicks in the door and decides the next morning. Yeah, his jalopy, which is called the Queen, screeches to a halt in front of the house, and he runs in, determined that he is going to be one of a famous archaeologist. This is one of those like kicked in the head by a mule.
Yeah, this is a really strange 3 pages.
It's 3 whole pages.
So Chet finds an ancient bowl.
Yes, made of porcelain.
That he's going to get carbon-14 tested.
I don't know when that technology was invented.
He also thinks for sure it's like pre-Ice Age?
Pre-Ice Age Native American. Probably dates back to the pre-glacial period.
That makes no sense. Also, if he found that, he is for sure going to be a famous archaeologist.
Yeah, and he's going to spend all of his life trying to prove that what he found isn't a fraud, as people try to debunk it, because it doesn't fit with any archaeological model.
But luckily for Chet, Gertrude walks in just at that moment.
To be like, why do you have my sugar bowl?
It turns out it's a sugar bowl that's been lost for a while.
The boys took it with them when they went on a picnic at Chet's house. When you were a teenage boy, did you do a lot of picnics with your friends where you
I did. We called them kegs.
Okay.
And I hope no police are listening, but we used to throw huge keg parties in City Park.
And
we also always brought sugar bowls.
Sugar bowls and fine tea sets and things like that. I just like the idea that two 17-year-old boys at their friend's farm brought out a sugar bowl because you need
Yeah, for what? Are you making tea? Yeah. On your picnic? Do you have coffee?
It's very Jane Austen or something like that to see the spread all laid out.
So strange. Well, and then they proceed for a couple pages to just rip on Chet.
For being dumb.
Just really hand it to him.
You fat, dumb, fat dummy.
Poor Chet, Joe said with regret. He took it pretty hard. You just ripped on him.
For
a while.
Aunt Gertrude, throughout many of the books, is the most vicious to Chet. Which I think is great. She's
maybe she's looking for a partner.
Maybe.
Right?
That's true.
She's not married.
That's true. Chet, in one book, decided to be vegetarian, and the boys teased him mercilessly until he gave up.
Did they call it a mistake? Sorry, that was terrible.
That was great. But, okay, so after supper, a doorbell rings. Oh, yeah, they decide that they're going to call him later and apologize. They never call Chet later and apologize for being so mean to him.
Chet went home to eat 4 more pies.
Yeah, exactly. Just eat your feelings. A guy shows up who is of medium height and weight, which means nothing. And he says he's in serious trouble. His name is Barney Egert. He was one of the crooks, right?
Yeah, but he was a late hire.
Yeah,
right?
He's one of the guys they hired on the docks.
Yeah, which is first of all, criminal organization, vet your employees, right?
Absolutely.
This guy turned as fast as he could.
I know.
Ran straight to the Hardy
That's
Boys.
why you don't take day laborers for criminal enterprises. Some of them might go to the police.
This whole part was very strange.
But he says that he doesn't have any friends, he has no money, he has nothing, and that their reputation is so well known, and he knows that you guys that he gets basically if he cooperates with them, the police will cut him a deal.
Because the judge is always well, the Hardy Boys said he's all right, so you're acquitted of murder, sir.
Exactly. You're I don't think he meant to do a murder.
It just sort of happened. It's fine. It happens to all of us.
Frank's once I punched a guy, his head came clean off. So, they talk about, though, how everybody's out of work and how everybody's so broke and how you have to take the jobs you can get. And, all the people they run into, the reason they get roped into this is because they're so destitute.
Yeah, and they never help them.
No,
right?
they never.
They've got their private jet and their boats and their
big old house and... Stupid Hardy Boys. And I just really, shit is rough for everyone not named Hardy.
Yeah, it's for sure. We're in the Depression.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
This is now the time frame has become very clear.
They've gone to more than one shanty town before, so it's very clearly Hoovervilles. It is deep depression.
But the Hardys are big fans of Hoover, so they don't call
that's
him
true.
Hoovervilles.
His regressive policies that kind of fits with their economic worldview. Sort of, they're. I bet they're meritocratous, where they're look, if they weren't poor. Or if they would just be better people, they wouldn't be poor.
If you could find clues, you would have a jet.
Yeah.
Or a propeller plane.
Or whatever. Though the Hardy Boys did find treasure in the first couple of books multiple times. So they have
And never turned it in.
Well, they turned it in, but they got huge thousands of dollar rewards every time they find treasure.
All right.
So I think they just have a big savings account. And they're never going to
college.
college.
And good investments.
They're perpetually 17 and 18, so they're never going to college.
Which helps. And super strong.
Yeah.
So...
Let's see. Frank asked the guy if he knows anything about the ships. He says that, yeah, I know about those ships. They pick up loot, and then they deliver it to the island, and then they get their payoff. They don't really get any information from Egert that they don't already know, right? It's kind of the worst-case scenario. He turns himself in as a member of a criminal conspiracy to confess to try to cooperate with the investigators to get a better deal. But he doesn't have any information they don't already have.
So for sure he's going to jail for a long time.
Yeah, it makes me think of Michael Cohen, is what it really makes me think of. It's like, I'm going to flip. And they're like, oh, we know all this stuff. Turns out you have nothing useful.
Shoot. I shouldn't have done that.
Shouldn't have done that. Whoops. And they finally get a message from Ellis, from Clay Ellis. And the message is this. Dit dit da dit 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 da dit 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 dit.
Of course.
Which apparently means Ellis need help, urgent. Will transmit 200 KC, 1700 CW to 2100 GMT daily. Should pick up at Cambrian, must go. He's in trouble.
Well, perhaps that was just like the beginning of the message, like a news alert, like
Oh, is that what
Alice
that
needs help,
sounded?
urgent. Will transmit 200 KC, 1700 CW to 2100 GMT daily. Should pick up at Caribbean. Must go.
I like that Fenton Hardy is like, Ellis will be transmitting on a frequency of 200 kilocycles, but for what reason? And I forget what CW means. I was like, you what? You forget? And they're like, it means continuous or carrier wave? And
He's
like,
actually testing his children.
Yeah, he's like, quite right. And I'm
Quite
like,
right, Frank. You don't get beat tonight.
Joe's like, wait, am I going?
Well, I knew that too, Dad. Shut up, Joe.
He didn't speak fast enough.
Also,
But
that just took a dark turn. I didn't realize Fenton appeared that way in my head, but apparently he does.
He is a vicious man.
It's because he's a kingpin.
Yep. Let's see. They decide that they got to get down there, and they're like, "Can we use your plane?" And again, I wonder if maybe like Fenton and Jack Wayne had some sort of falling out, because they're like, "We should use Dad's plane," and they're like, "No, let's use Dan's."
That guy you met, that random guy that picked you up from that island where
with
his
the
lover
seaplane.
lives.
Use him, and that way, because he knows the area. And they're like, "Let's ask Chet if he wants to come along," and they do, and they take a flight
They take Chet with them,
to Cambrian Island.
but they don't take their private plane.
No, they take
They book another
Southwest flight down to Miami.
And right when they made the reservation, they're like, we have a plane. Oh, no,
No, it's fine. Let's see. There's a slight delay. I thought that the slight delay was going to lead to some plot point.
No.
Just part of air travel. That's the shot of them.
It's foreshadowing to the future of air travel.
Yeah.
Right? Every other plane they've had is perfect. Nothing bad happens.
They walk from one plane to another plane.
I mean, even the flight where engine caught a flame.
Yeah, they landed.
They were fine.
They were fine. They decide they're going to go see if they can find Dan Taylor by just wandering around the airfield.
Right.
And they do.
And he's just gotten done fixing his plane that they broke.
And they're like, "Can we have another ride?" And he's like, "Yeah, for sure."
Yeah, just fix it. Sweet, let's go.
He doesn't have any jobs or anything.
No, he's just sort of biding time so he doesn't spend too much time with his lover. So that
He doesn't want the relationship to go stale.
Yeah, familiarity
Also,
breeds contempt.
There is not a lot to do on that island, and they've been together long enough that they've done all the stuff they went down there for.
Yeah.
So it's going to take so much fuel that they can only fit that they have to add on a bigger tank to the seaplane.
Yeah, and they can only take 2 of them.
And there's a brief moment of hilarity where they're like, I guess Fenton and Chet are going.
And Chet is like super excited, and then they just
You
idiot, stay here, Chet. What are you gonna fly? Too fat to fly.
That's so stupid, you stupid.
And the joke they should have made, since they've been ragging on Chet's weight this whole time, is like, oh, you can only fit 2 people, so Chet. Right? That's
absolutely
stupid Hardy Boys.
But instead, why did they bring him down there to Florida just to tell him that he has to
Get
stay?
his hopes up.
Yeah, get him out of Bayport again.
Maybe Fenton is actually grooming Chet to be a great henchman or
That's
part
true.
of his criminal
Chet
organization.
does seem like
because then we have just the Hardy Boys for almost the rest of the book.
Yeah.
Until another.
You kind of wonder what Chet and Fenton are up to.
Fenton's teaching him how to torture people, right? Okay. Like, I got this guy we got to interview down in Florida. Come on, Chet, I'll show you how this is done.
Yeah, and he's like, so here, I'm going to teach you how to punch, right? So
this is punch a man.
This is a tied up dummy with a burlap sack over his head. And you're like, that dummy's crying pretty hard.
Why is the dummy bleeding?
Just hit it as hard as you can. They decide, what, are they going to try to get on another one of these ships?
No, they get into the plane that they had to remove 2 seats for extra fuel because they had to triangulate where
That was kind of interesting, the triangulation. That I thought was actually pretty cool.
But they didn't explain it with the right terms.
Nope, they didn't.
They didn't say the word triangulate ever.
No,
right?
and I'm like...
He's like, and then with some quick maths, I'll figure out where they are.
What kind of maths?
Yeah, it's a triangle.
A triangle,
Right?
yeah. Basically, they know where the broadcast is coming from, and they know how far away it is.
Yeah.
And then by traveling a certain distance, 10 degrees, and then measuring it again, they're able to figure out exactly where it is on the map.
Yeah.
That's triangulation.
Yeah.
It was a really good opportunity to teach kids something, and they chose not to do it.
Yeah, I was like, all right, well, just let your sweet new pilot do all that mathy stuff.
They pass over a ship.
Yeah,
they
he
land
lands
on a secret
near.
island.
Well, they don't see the ship. They like see the ship, but don't. Right? They don't see the ship till they've landed in like.
I've a hunch the yellow parrot is hidden down there. Is what he says.
Got a raging hunch.
Yeah, just the biggest one.
And this is when they get attacked by a shark.
Yeah, they land. They go to swim from where the where the boat landed to shore.
No, they're in a raft.
They're
right?
in a raft. That's right. The pilot inflated the raft and eased it over the side, and they get attacked by a shark. It's page 157.
So bingo.
You got bingo.
I got bingo.
Oh my god! So what are your bingos?
So we have trespassing.
Great.
We have a vagrant with mental health issues.
Yes, we've got more than one possible.
The boys leave Bayport many times. A secret passageway.
For sure.
And an animal.
Oh my god, that's bingo, man. We're not even done with the book.
That's bingo.
We haven't had a bingo in a while. It's good to finally get one.
It is. It is. I feel very proud to be a part of this.
You should feel proud. So they just
they
run away, right?
Well, here's what happens. So the ship hears the commotion of them because they know that to scare sharks away, you should just flail.
Yeah.
I think it said very clear, like, that's how you scare sharks away.
They were hurled over the lip into... Oh, yeah, because the shark doesn't just...
The
shark
shark gets shot by the men from the boat that don't see the boys flailing right next to the shark.
Well, the thing is that the shark doesn't just surround their ship. It grabs Frank's paddle and pulls it out of his hands. Then it goes under the raft and pushes it over.
And see, I imagined his razor-sharp fin slicing the raft in half.
Like a cartoon.
Right, and then being fixed by that tape that guy
But yeah,
sells.
so the boys are too terror-stricken to notice what's going. They're just kicking around in the water, and someone fires a shot. Thank God neither of the boys got hit.
Yeah, no, it kills the shark outright.
In one hit, yeah. Amazing. And then the boys get to shore, and as soon as they get to shore, a group of bronze-skinned natives seems to appear from nowhere. They surround the youths. There is no escape.
I would just like to go back a second to explain these boys' concept of how sharks work. Frank and Joe knew they must kick, scream, and flail their arms in an effort to scare the shark away. That's Shark Safety 101 for you.
Act like a wounded animal.
That shark will definitely leave us alone.
If we just act like a helpless animal.
Also, a moment ago, I was referring to flex tape. That's what I was referring to.
Oh, okay. the thing that a shark's fin when it slices.
It wouldn't slice through that.
No. Can't
Okay.
be flex tape. This chapter is called The Pirate King, and of course we had to wait until chapter 19 of 20 to meet the Pirate King.
You know, if you're a king, you should make some sort of impression. But the Pirate King, even in these next two chapters, doesn't really leave an impression on me.
He's just a guy. They didn't do anything to build him up. Their description of the community, the village in the valley on this island, is kind of interesting. So it's like thatch roof huts, it seems like, but there's also a medieval-looking small castle.
Yeah, definitely conquistadors.
Yes, conquistador castles. Massive, heavy wooden arc-shaped doors on massive iron hinges, conquistador-type helmets and breastplates. Each wore the bright red symbol of the twisted claw. So there's like guards. These natives are clearly
Slaves.
slaves. Yes, they've been clearly enslaved.
I just also want to point out, we'll get there, but the Pirate King has only come to this island recently.
Yes.
So that means these poor native people have stared at a castle with iron and hinges and stuff they could have used to build a bit more permanent
you think they would have stripped
settlement.
that thing?
Also, this is the
Or lived in there.
Bahamas in 1930-ish.
Yeah, so there's still people around.
Yeah, I just feel that the rest of the world has really neglected this area.
Yes, maybe they needed someone to come in and be their new pirate king. The interior of the building was magnificent. The walls soared upwards and met in a series of gentle arches. These, combined with the towering columns and polished stone floors, gave the area a palatial appearance. Amazing, Joe whispered. I could do without it. Frank muttered. What, Frank?
Yeah, no, he's not a fan of Gothic style or even post-Gothic.
No, it seems like he finds it just ostentatious. And
since gunpowder, like, your walls are meaningless.
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely. Like,
and Frank's a person of today.
But they meet this crazy king, and on the far side of this medieval banquet table is a man wearing a fur-collared red robe. Now, again, this is the Bahamas.
Yeah.
His aquiline nose jutted out from between a set of dark glacial eyes. Standing to his right was Rollin, first mate of the Yellow Parrot. Rollin was a jerk to the guys earlier.
Yeah, he was a guy they tried to fight a couple times and beat him up.
Yeah, and so apparently this guy is some descendant of the original Kartal, who is from that book that the boys saw. And he says that he's Kartal, king of this island, which, no, you're just living on this island. Master of the island is probably a better term.
But they also didn't mention he's wearing a fur red robe.
Yes.
But no pants. Because it is the Bahamas and it's a little hot.
Too hot. Woo boy. Yeah, and so they think that there might be someone else on the island, and the king's like, have their men search the island at first light. And they're like, I wish there was some way to warn Tiller. And he's like, yeah, maybe you should have thought of that before you left him alone.
Also, this pirate king, I'm trying to find it. He says some really stupid things to them. Let me take care of these guys, Rollin fumed. Calm yourself. I admire audacity. However, I have no time to question them now. He clapped his hands. 2 cards. Reposted. Take the prisoners to the East Tower. I think we ought to find out how they got here first. Rollin protested. There might be others. It's obvious they came by boat or plane. So he definitely just pinky in the brain to him, right? Like, we should search the island for someone else. Shut up. Here's what we should do. We should search the island for someone else, right?
Have a man conduct a search. Also, I like that he's too busy to question them now. What do you got going on, man?
Yeah, no, what? You're sitting in a fur coat
At
in
a
your castle doing nothing.
He's like, no, I haven't thought of any questions to ask them.
The dancers are coming. Shh.
I don't want, because if I'm not here and they show up, they might leave, and then we'll have to reschedule.
I just got them here. Can we please not? Just take them to the brig. We'll question them later.
Oh, they're gonna escape. It's the Austin Powers thing. I have a gun in my room.
I will go get it and we'll kill them together.
It'll be fun. They get thrown in the brig and they immediately find the standard old man with a beard chained to the wall.
Yeah,
that's in.
That was also. This was also a potential vagrant with mental issues.
A crazy old man chained up in a dungeon, which I was like, oh yeah, whenever you get thrown in a dungeon, there's
this
already.
Is also, I have a swindled old prisoner on here.
A swindled old person. I have that one as well.
Or old personer, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this counts as a cult. The cult of the red.
It doesn't. He's not delusional.
He's delusional, and these guys just think that there's money in it.
Yeah.
So they find out that this guy is the father of Clay Ellis, who is the radio operator.
On the other ship that they made Chet wait for days.
Yeah.
To hear
so
from.
Clay is being blackmailed, basically. Like, they'll kill his dad if he doesn't work with them.
Yeah, which just didn't make much sense.
No, they should just kill the dad and Clay.
Yeah.
And hire
someone to work the radio.
Yeah.
It's 1930s. People know how to work a radio.
Maybe Chet. He clearly knows how to work a radio. And then Ellis is like, hey, you guys might not have noticed, but that dude is crazy. The king of this island. They have to stop him. And they're like, no, we noticed.
Yeah, he has no pants on.
Yeah. And he's in a big fur coat and a
Again, I want to be very clear. I made up the fact that he has no pants on.
No. That's now canon.
Okay.
He is only described as wearing a heavy red fur-lined robe.
With no pants.
And with no pants. But they don't talk about what else he's wearing, so we can assume it's nothing. But I also think about the men who are in full suits of armor in the Bahamas.
It sounds miserable.
I know.
Like, God, and they're standing like at the doors, just like sweating. Two of them have passed out from heat exhaustion. Yeah. They're just like leaned up.
Occasionally, but the suits just lock when you pass out.
Yeah, so it's perfect. So they're dead. They've been dead for days.
In basically an oven. Yeah, and they said that he's crazy, and I was like, well, this, despite the little impression that the Pirate King leaves, he is the closest thing to a supervillain the boys have fought. He's got a secret island lair. He's got tons of goons. He's got a weird aesthetic thing that's like his whole...
A castle?
He's got a castle. He's got a pirate theme.
He successfully pulled off several huge robberies.
A museum.
Right.
He's enslaved an island of its indigenous... He's enslaved the indigenous population of an island. He's really, really discount, like dollar store Dr. Doom.
Yeah, he's got to be really smart. I can't wait to see how they capture him.
They get out of the place.
That was foreshadowing.
Yes, absolutely. They're like, hey, maybe we could... they found out that he's managed to get a hole formed. He could, he's carved his way out. I don't know how long Mr. Ellis has been in
Also, this escape plan is my favorite.
So you want to walk through how it works?
So they talk to this old man who's been locked up for a while. He says, I've already done all the digging work. So the hole is there. It's just like a 40-foot drop. And really quickly, one of the Hardy Boys, it doesn't matter, is like, let's take all of our clothes off and tie them together in a rope. So their belts, their shirts. Oh, but the old guy contributes. He's like, I also have this blanket on a Caribbean island, which probably isn't that thick or strong. So we can use that as a rope as well. So they make a rope from their clothing, their belts, and this Caribbean island blanket to descend. And then the boys do, and the old guy's like, no, don't worry about me, I'm too old. They're like, no, you have to come with us. And then
he does it.
And then there's a moment where he's halfway down the rope and stops, and you think something's going to happen, but it doesn't. They just encourage him, like, keep coming. He's like, oh, all right, and then climbs down the rest of the way.
I know. I thought he was going to fall.
Yeah, I thought I was like, oh, and that's the end of the old guy.
I can't. And
they'd have to come up with some way to save him.
Which possibly that was removed in the edit, because it's like, yeah, he freezes, and he's like, I can't do it. And they're like, yeah, you can, man, just keep coming. And he's like, oh, okay. I really like, it says here that that after all the articles are tied together, Frank estimates his length. He says, this will take us within 15 feet of the ground.
Yes, so this old guy also gets to the bottom of this and has to drop another 15 feet. Oh, but the boys are there to soften his landing.
I mean, he fell.
So they just sort of stood there and got hit by him?
But I was thinking of the first boys, who got to the end of the rope and then dropped 15 feet.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Slammed.
An average room is 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
And the room we're in probably right now is probably 15 feet. That's an incredible drop.
Yeah.
That's break your ankle.
But they were there to soften his fall. How? We don't know.
Yeah, and of course, Frank, the first one who dropped, and Joe, they can drop 15 feet and land in an Iron Man pose.
Oh, of course. They're the Hardy Boys.
They escape. They find out, they overhear Cartal, talking to his first mate, and
I like to imagine he's just talking to no one. He's just revealing plot points to a tree, right?
He's that crazy. But he explains that he's the Norwood Museum in Connecticut is of special interest to me. The armor there was made for my ancestors' exclusive use. I was like, why didn't you steal that first?
Yeah, wouldn't that be the one you wanted to wear with your red fur cape? And
why did you do that one last?
No pants.
No pants? And now a big shiny breastplate?
Yeah,
just dangling underneath?
Just so strange. They've also captured Dan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They caught Dan because Dan was just sort of idling in his seaplane off the coast.
Again, we're just throwing names at you. Dan is the guy that has the seaplane.
Yeah, the amphibian. So. They make Tiller remove the long-range tank so that Cartal and his cohorts, who are now going to take the plane...
Right, which the long-range tank was in there so they could make it back, which means I don't know how they made it anywhere. And they all have suits of armor on. They each weigh 3 people, right? But the plane was too small to hold 4 people.
No consistency. I just imagine the pilot frantically explaining to them, no, I can't, please.
You're going to do it and you're going to like it. This isn't going to work.
No, we're going to make it 200 miles and we're going to run out of fuel. We're going to go down. And they're like, no, it'll be fine.
It's fine. I'm Cartal.
I am a king. And then they're like, your friend will not have... Alice is like, your friend will not have a chance to escape. Cartal is clever. He'll be watching them like a hawk. And I just wrote, no, he's not clever. He's a crazy person.
He is kind of nuts.
He'll probably forget about the pilot at some point. And then what? Is this when they decide to stage a revolt?
Yes, but they don't do anything for it.
They don't.
They send the guy that Mr. Ellis, who they just escaped from prison with, and
who is now an emaciated skeletal man with a beard and shaved hair.
They send him to just go convince the natives to rebel against their new leader.
Yes.
Apparently he's got a silver tongue.
I guess he rolled a nat 20 on persuasion because these natives immediately jump on board. And I can't remember, do they their father arrives.
Yes, on the Caribbean Coast Guard plane. It's
Another seaplane.
It's another seat, but it's very clear that it's much bigger.
Yes. It's the one they should have taken originally.
Yeah. So they all could have fit in it.
And it clearly has enough fuel. So they ask, he's like, hey, boys, how are you? And they're like, well, we're starving, but otherwise we're okay. They get a raft, and everybody comes ashore. And they said that Ellis hadn't stopped broadcasting his signal, so they were able to find the island, which I thought was really weird, that Ellis wouldn't stop broadcasting.
Yeah, it seems like he got that done with already.
Yeah, and he should stop.
But also, Ellis is not mentioned again, so he's still locked in the radio room.
Oh, yeah, on board the Black
You think
Parrot.
his father, who has been missing him for years, would have wanted to see his son first.
Like, immediately.
Yeah, but he really needed to stage the revolt first.
Yeah. Let's see, he's like, okay, I'm going to request an international alert. The parrots will be seized wherever they try to put into port. Your son will be all right. I'm like, yeah, or they'll kill him immediately when they find out that...
Yeah, that he's been helping pirates.
Or that he's been helping the cops.
Right.
Yeah.
All of it makes no sense.
No. We're getting near the end of the book where the train of thought is starting to
and it
go
just
off
wraps up so fast. Just like really cleans it up. But I'd like to say that as they are flying back to Florida, Chet says the only logical thing that's said in this entire book. He says, I've never traveled so many miles in so short a time before.
Possibly no one has.
Yeah, Chet, you hit the nail on the head.
This might have been a record. Yeah, I just wrote, this is effing crazy how much you've been flying around. So I got to add another flight to my list.
I think you have to add 2.
Oh, that's right, because they flew there
seaplane
and they flew
back to Florida.
Right, and then they fly
back to New York. The flight to New York was smooth and fast.
Did I miss the whole revolt?
All the revolt is the native people attack someone?
There's like 2 guards left, right?
Yeah, and they just quickly attack them.
And so the village leader and Ellis rally the natives, and they basically just
overpower
these 2 guards, who I guess don't have guns because they're period appropriate.
They can only have...
They have like arquebuses, like those conquistador-style guns that couldn't hit anything.
They fired once, and they're like, well, that's the end of that.
It'll take 2 hours to load this thing back up, so... Yeah, and then they fly home.
Okay, so let's just make sure we have all these flights correct.
Okay.
So they fly from the island where the castle is to Cambrian.
Yeah.
And then from Cambrian to Miami, and then from Miami to New York City.
Then they fly to Norwood, where the last bit of armor that Cartol, the one he should have stolen first, the one that's actually important.
All of his men have been captured. They said
just him.
Except for one person to escape, who turns out to be Cartol. And so they go to investigate the scene, and on the scene, they notice that the suit of armor that he was really coveting moved a little bit.
Yeah, it's standing in the corner, and I just imagine you can see the eyes behind the faceplate, like darting around.
And Frank's like, I have a hunch, and goes to the suit of armor, which just moved, so I don't think that's a hunch.
No, I saw that. Yeah.
And they remove the helmet, and it apparently is him.
A violent struggle follows, so he tries to tackle them, but he's in a heavy suit of armor. I imagine he can't see very well. And then Cartol actually does a meddling, kids. He says, you'll regret having meddled in my affairs. Too bad Starker didn't succeed in squashing you like an ant in the Philadelphia Museum, he said, confessing to an attempted murder.
Yeah, so that helps.
Yeah. There's another charge against you, attempted murder.
And then they wrap everything up really quickly, but there's one thing that bothers me, Frank said. What caused that shell hole in the yellow parrot?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Hardy grinned. I found that out, too. She was shot by a Central American smuggling patrol boat one night, but got away without being identified. So it wasn't it was a patrol boat to stop smugglers, or was it a patrol boat of smugglers?
Smugglers patrolling their own smuggling waters. It was clearly a plot point that
did not make it
into this book, this edition, yeah.
And we're near the end, but just to be clear, we have to rip on Chet at least one more time.
Oh, that's right. What is the last little FU to Chet?
Chet comes back in after taking a nap in the car, in the squad car, and he says, find any clues? He asked with a yawn. A few, Frank quipped. You're a little bit late.
Yeah, and then when he gets home, they fly home. That's right. Then they fly home.
Another flight.
And Chet's dad is like, well, we got a lot of work to do. And he's like, I need a chance to recuperate. And he's like, from your trip to the Caribbean? What are you talking about? And then he's like, I'll give you till tomorrow. Then you had to start turning over a patch of crabgrass on the front lawn. And then they say, basically like, F you, Chet, maybe you'll find another sugar bowl. And then everybody laughs.
You idiot. You stupid fat idiot.
The end.
End of book.
And that is the end of the story. Absolutely insane.
For sure gonna burn it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my favorite Hardy Boys that I've read so far. It had everything I wanted. Globe-trotting adventures, ridiculous inventions,
nonsense,
super villain-ish characters,
fat dummies in chat.
Fat dummies. I cannot believe how much was crammed in this book. I did not get a bingo. I am really happy to hear that you did, but I'm going to count up these flights real quick. And this might be conservative. I might have missed a few. 22 flights minimum. And that's just Joe and Frank. Yeah. Not counting all the flights that Fenton and checked.
And they had to have occurred within a week and a half?
Yeah. It's
between 2 track meets, right? Because the next book also opens up with them winning another track meet that their parents don't attend.
So, Brian, thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thanks for having me.
What was your final thoughts, final impressions of this book?
Well,
Did you learn anything new about how narrative does?
I'm just really glad I read a Hardy Boys book.
Yeah.
So now I can speak with great authority on the Hardy Boys.
Absolutely. And if you ever want to not have to read one again, this show is a perfect resource for folks out there who hears people the Hardy Boys come up. Don't make somebody read one of these books. Just have them listen to us talk about it. Okay. Well, Brian, do you have anything coming up? Anything you'd like to plug?
Come to the museum. Come see us at the museum.
Yeah, Brian is currently in our Leonardo da Vinci exhibit, which will be here through August 25th. And you're an actor in the exhibit.
Yeah.
So what is your particular character?
So I'm basically a merchant.
Okay.
And good friends with Leonardo. We're drinking buddies.
That's good.
It doesn't come up much, but it gives me an excuse to know a bunch of things I shouldn't know as just a merchant. So yeah, it's really fun.
That's great. Well, yeah, come in and see it. And always, the museum is always a great place to go. Thank you so much for coming, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
The Hardy Boys Drink Book Podcast is produced by Jack and Charles Webso. It is a part of the Panelism Network. Our music is produced by Danny Overby at Round 2 Productions, and our graphic design is by Kristen Hallstrom. Special thanks to Brian Kusic and for Darren Harris and Stephen Claustre at Gerard's Pool Hall, located in the alleyway between Larimer and Walnut in RiNo. And don't forget to tune in next time for The Hardy Boys Drink Book number 19, The Disappearing Floor, featuring Chelsea Ochoa.